Right now, we have the backups kicking in. Right now, because of power surges. Are you kidding me? Speaking of power surges, do you guys know how transformers work? Anybody know how transformers work? I want you guys to know that I was talking to a few people from power companies, and they maintain networks, substations, you name it. A lot of those places, substations and transient points are underground. A few of the executives, not that I'm important, but a few of the executives were discussing some frailties with how power is distributed in relation to heat. The heat has maintained its status for so long that the coils and the ceramic material inside of the transformer is becoming brittle, very brittle. Now, some of the best transformers that are made, that are indeed airtight, that are really, they're wound up pretty tightly, done very well. They're hitting a stress point. And there are places, in fact, this is all over the world. We have two things happening. On one side of the world, you have a lot of people who are being medically admitted for heat-related issues. On the opposite side of the world, you have a lot of people being admitted for hypothermia. Imagine that. That's a fact. What it implies, if you map out where the heat has been, is that the Earth, heat-wise, right, heat and cold, hot and cold-wise, has already shifted 16 degrees, 16.2 degrees, I believe it was. That doesn't mean the Earth moved. It means that the weather patterns are being maintained 16 degrees offset from what they are. What could do that? What could maintain the weather patterns 16 degrees off from where they were? 16 degrees. That's huge, just to let you know that. And this is not the Earth, right? This is weather patterns. Let me explain this better. If you took one saucer on the top, another saucer on the bottom, clearly you have a rim around the middle. If the top saucer is cold and the bottom saucer is hot, right, that normally develops weather patterns. And if they stay that way, well, it's pretty good. But suppose on your top plate, the backside is hot and the front side facing you is cold. And on the bottom side, the front side is cold and the back side is hot. Well, without changing the position of the two saucers, you would have effectively changed the conditions, the temperature difference, right, of the entire assembly. That's what's happened to the Earth. So where it would normally maintain an ambient temperature or even a mean temperature of possibly 62 degrees, it has now dropped off to nothing. On the other side, where it would have maintained colder temps, right? It's hot, which means hot and cold wise, or weather patterns have shifted big time. Now, the only thing that can make this happen is an external force. And because it's happened over the last 4 years, specifically, 4 years. See, that's the difference. A lot of people say, well, we've had heat before. Yes, we have. Well, we've had lots of cold before. Yes, we have. But the problem is, if we were to take the Earth and create a model of where it's been hot and where it's been cold, and just keep those dots, and color-coded dots from red to blue, you would clearly see that the rim of the Earth flows a little above. It's going above New York. It's not going right below or right there in the middle of Honduras. It's above New York. The only thing that can do that and maintain that is a change in our magnetic field. Now, a lot of people do research on the Earth's magnetic field. It is a polarized set of pathways, right, generated by both the theorized dynamo within the Earth, moving magma, so on and so forth, and external forces. So it does not have that runaway effect. if something were to alter the magnetic shielding where we still had it, but its polarization was different, right? That would imply where it has where most of the polar conjunction is, most of that polarized conjunction, for example, two magnets, once you get two tips together in a straight, two bar magnets, right there at the top, right, where they both meet and repel at the same time, that would be your junction. If that tilted, then something external has influenced the Earth already. Now, the only way to prove that is to track, right, to track some of the temperature phenomena happening on other planets. For example, Mars. It would have to have the exact same degree of tilt as us if it's an external related event. And it has. But even to go further than that, if that truly is the case, then we have a magnet in our solar system, a big magnet called Mercury. And so Mercury, being composed of what it is, it too would have telltale signs that it's conjunction point magnetism. Now that's my term, by the way. It's my term. I'm doing this so you guys can understand. That conjunction point would also have to point the same direction as the Earth's conjunction point and the conjunction point of Mars. And sure enough, all that data coming back shows that indeed Mars, the Earth, even the gas giants are being affected right now. Even Jupiter is affected right now. They're all lining up, pointing in one direction, right? Now, of course, we're not going to tell you what that direction is because a lot of folks would just go out there and try to find an object in that vicinity. But that would be silly because they don't have that type of capability looking through an atmosphere, right? It filters out too much to get a clean image of anything very cold, what would be considered cold out there. So that would be ridiculous. However, there would be quite a few telltale signs in the Earth that would continue. Now, yesterday, I'm talking about these weather patterns that we have because you're going to have. They have a conference, 3 conferences coming up, and 2 presidential meetings. But they're going to discuss an urgent matter regarding weather phenomena, right? I hope you guys aren't fooled into believing this global warming paradigm. I went over with you guys how that began. You guys remember that? How that began about global warming? It's not, global warming did not begin because somebody all of a sudden realized, we're going to have some bad problems with the weather because of all the carbon emissions. That's not what that's from. It started because of a magnetar, but it has momentum for a total different reason. Oh boy, we're about to go spiritual. But Jimmy cracked corn. Jimmy cracked corn. Do you guys know what a magnetar is? A magnetar, right? On a magnetar, listen to this. These are the pulls involved and the forces involved. I believe, now I'm going to estimate. This is going to be an overestimation, but on a magnetar, first of all, is very small. It's very small. But its magnetic pull is almost close to the pull of a black hole. But it's very small. What happened is a small section, possibly, I'm going to estimate, possibly a 1 foot by 1 foot square shifted on the magnetar. 1 foot by 1 foot piece of real estate on that magnetar shifted. It shifted. And when it shifted, right, when that piece shifted, and we're not talking about the first one in 2004, but when it shifted, it was comparable to our sun blowing up, you could say, right? It's comparable or compared to that. In 2004, I told you again, I'm going to estimate. I'm going to say it was about be a good guess. Probably about 2.2 centimeters. That's 22 millimeters. That's tiny. You could put that in your pocket. A piece of real estate, no bigger than the palm of your hand, shifted, causing a blast that took place a long time ago. And the earth was in the pathway of that blast. And it hit us and chopped off a piece of our atmosphere in the year 2004. 2004. When it hit in 2004, due to observations, they noticed it knocked off a big chunk of the ozone. They had a critical problem, right? Now, you don't notice when the atmosphere is missing. Not immediately, but it knocked off a chunk of the atmosphere. It was so devastating, so powerful. They devoted much attention, a lot of money and everything else, to finding out, trying to determine an early warning system for these things. Thus, you have global warming. Now, when they began to have these emergency meetings and allocate funds, there was a certain party within our government that then utilized the term global warming. That's when it began. That's when it took off. And from there, it had a life on its own. So always keep global warming over there, because I'm not talking about that. I'm dealing with what is happening on all the planets, not just us, right? A volcano can put out more carbon than we could. We put out carbon, and you do that in 1,000 years. Putting out carbon 1,000 years still does not match some of the eruptions we have had. Now, let me ask you this. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. So clearly, I'm not talking about global warming as people have described it, because that needs to be qualified when they do talk about it. Because these weather phenomena, these changes are happening on all the planets, not just Earth. It's happening everywhere, even in our sun.